Hi, I'm here with Alyssa Poggioli. She's a former corporate fitness professional, present day life and EQ coach, and co-author with me on the book, The Successful Mind. Hi, Alyssa. How are you doing?
Hey Nate, I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you. I wanted to welcome you and ask if you could tell me a little bit about what you do as a coach and how you found kind of your calling towards being a coach, your why as far as being a coach.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, as you said, I spent 8 years in corporate fitness. I've always been really passionate towards people's overall well being, um, mind, body, spirit in that form. But going to college, I came out with a health promotion and business degree. And the closest I could get to helping people with their overall well-being, I wanted to be a wellness coordinator. That job was really hard to land, but really was able to find sound jobs in corporate fitness management. So in those jobs in headquarter buildings, I would manage fitness centers, and it was the personal training conversations, the questions that people would come, the stress of seeing and feeling what people were experiencing, and just overall my desire to further my growth. Like the personal training conversations I had were eye opening, just with the need and the demand for people to have help in something more than just their physical health. And it's interesting because it's very common and typical to want to manipulate the physical to be able to make yourself or your life and experience better or different. However, when we're not handling and taking ownership for our habits, our behaviors, our thoughts, our emotions, it's like expecting a tree to grow, like expand without watering it or without giving it the sunlight. Like your physical form cannot change without the internal world being seen and acknowledged. You can create change, but it's not going to be everlasting. And that's why it's so interesting when I have clients who can lose a lot of weight or a substantial amount before they even start exercising, simply by having conversations that are changing their internal world. Um, so I started with habit change. Like
Okay.
that was the easiest thing to go with, is like, okay, I'm in corporate fitness working with a lot of executives and directors. The tangible thing is to help them change their habits so that
Yeah.
they can change their life. And then it started to really open my eyes to understanding the relationship components, whether it's sabotage of yourself, being sabotaged by your partner because they're in a bad space, feeling like you have to be sabotaged because you have children. Pardon my French, but it's minor bullshit that we make excuses of because we don't want to put in the ownership and the commitment to really taking care of ourselves and handling ourselves as self so that we can take care of others. So now my practice today is really focused on the mental and emotional.
Mhm.
However, the methodology is 4 components: the intentional habits, because I believe that you can create major change and have the difference you want without having to make drastic changes and measures. Like if you want to lose weight, you shouldn't have to go on this strict diet and count your macros or count your calories. It doesn't have to be that hard. So intentional habits, your bulletproof beliefs. We really got to get clear on what it is you're telling yourself, what it is you're thinking, how it is you're feeling, how it is you're letting others make you feel, which then goes into the relationship 2.0. I want you to get real crystal clear on how it is you're creating disconnect. What role are you playing in your relationships? Um, you knowing your conflict resolutions and your defense mechanisms, and really just enhancing your emotional intelligence to allow you to be able to connect with people.
Mhm.
And then that fourth component of that methodology is the now work-life integration. It was work-life balance, but because we are living in a virtual world, being able to integrate your home life with your work life is key. So I break that down into 4 sections of your job fulfillment and advocacy, your priorities, your boundaries, and your time management.
Mm. And do you, you were talking about kind of how people often sabotage themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So when they come to you, are they prepared for you to tell them, hey, it's your responsibility? Or are they coming to you thinking like, tell me what my problem is, or tell me how others in life can act so that I can improve? How are they prepared to accept responsibility, or do they know you're going to say, hey, you're responsible for starting this?
No, they are not ready for that. They don't like that conversation. Half the times they don't know it's coming, and they don't know what it really is or how it, like, I'm surprised at the amount of people who don't, like, when I address sabotage and we talk about where it comes from and what it is, they're like, yeah, no, I don't do that. And then I'm like, no, there's like 3 distinct ways you sabotage yourself. Like, I'm going to read them, and which one are you? And then they're like, oh shit. And it's like the light bulb. That being said, men particularly are very, like, it's very common for them to want that, like, I just kind of wanted to know how to fix this and what to do. Like, they're very, give me an 8-step thing and I'm just going to
Yeah.
follow it through. Like, I'm actually going to do it. I'm not going to really focus on who I'm being in the doing. I'm just going to get it done and then expect it to be different. And
You're kidding me.
I love that about men. I'm very, like, get it done. That's just
Yeah.
the former farmer in me, but it doesn't create tangible results. Like, and that's what's so beautiful about my work with men. I love seeing them kind of break open and be able to really address what is more common for women, or maybe people of different ethnic groups, to more naturally do. There's something about the men in the US, especially in the Midwest, the strong, tough guy, closed offness, and it really just results in living a lonely life, feeling undersupported, high stress, and with unrealistic expectations. So it's not to say that women aren't the same.
Too, I'm sure. Unrealistic expectations of themselves as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that is when in corporate, I knew something had to change, because I was just mind boggled by just these charismatic guys that would show up, work, like, provide, but they felt so lonely or so resentful or just like tired. And it's like, wow, something has to change. Or could it change? And then you get, and normally, right, the people I work with, they're fed up. It's live or die. Like, something has got to change. It's midlife crisis mode. I wish it didn't take that for people to really decide that they wanted to invest in themselves. But unfortunately, that is like what it kind of takes right now. But I'm manifesting that that's a shift that changes in the pandemic, that more people have coaches than not, because
Yeah.
why not?
And why not? And it's so nice to have an unbiased party. Like,
Yeah.
hard to go to your spouse. It's hard to go to your partner, your kids, your coworker, or co-founder. So it can be even hard to go to your best friends. It can be hard to admit it to yourself a lot of times. You need an unbiased party,
Mm-hmm.
and a coach can fulfill that a lot. I wanted to touch on the pandemic, but you brought something up. You talked about being like resentful and kind of do or die moment. I watched your video on your website where you talked about how life is short.
Life
Um,
is urgent.
yeah, life is urgent. Can you tell me, when did you first, because you also went through autopilot a while in your corporate job.
Oh
Can you
yeah.
tell me, like, when did that hit you that, holy crap, I gotta do something, like my life isn't gonna
Now.
last forever. And then how did that affect you? And then how did that lead into you becoming a coach?
So I was in corporate and I had had 2 years of certification and like coaching on the side under my belt.
Mhm.
I was working for a pharmaceutical company, Japanese owned, so like no work-life balance, working 15-hour days. I loved what I did and I loved the people. So it made sense and it was an easy loop to get caught. But I just was to the point to where I was making more money than what I really needed. I wanted to have a relationship, but I didn't really have time. But I tried and I couldn't show up. So then there was like that judgment and confusion. And then my health, like I just started, like my health started to get away from me. And then as a fitness professional, there's like this huge imposter syndrome that can take over. So then I'm like, shit, like I'm expecting these people to take care of themselves, yet I can't even do it myself. Who am I? So I then had this plan to be like to leave, to
Okay.
just finish the year. I'm just gonna like bow out. That did not happen. I went, got my physical, ended up passing out because I got my blood draw. I got my blood drawn, passed out, gave myself a concussion, had vertigo for 9 weeks. Like
Oh my gosh.
it was major impact for a fitness professional that always needed to be moving or training. Like it was awful. And then finally, as I started to come out of it, the company changed management roles or changed management companies. They changed contractors. So
Okay.
then me and my team lost our jobs on Christmas Eve that year. So then I was like without a job. So I'm like, oh, this is the way the universe is like, A, my health was taking a shit. B, I had this major crisis of like brain injury. And then the company was just like, we've
Bye.
we've hired a new management company.
Oh
So
no.
I'm like, okay, this is a sign, right? This is a sign. So I really took it seriously. Got clear on wanting to make a difference through my coaching. I did it. I traveled some, tried to go back to corporate for like 9 months. Again, met wonderful people. This was in a tech company, Motorola Solutions. So like different population, loved it. But again, just was miserable. So then I just quit and decided to hire a coach. So I did. And that's really when I learned that life is urgent. I had to get really clear with what my relationship to urgency was. And it was it was unhealthy. Like I interpreted urgent as like it's an emergency, it's last minute, like something really bad has to happen. And that's fine, but it's not like for being such a preventative care, preventative risk mitigating person. It's not healthy. It's not effective. And it's sure as shit not helpful in like getting what you want or creating the relationships you want. You get to get clear on that time is your power
Mhm.
and that life is urgent. So I just then decided to travel, do 12 countries in 12 months,
Wow.
because I wanted to learn about the world and do what I love. So I put all my eggs in me, um, and did that. But then again in Malaysia, got salmonella in February and
Oh.
was hospitalized for 2 weeks.
Oh.
And again, near death experience. That was actually the near death. The concussion wasn't with the vertigo, but it was just another slap in the face to remember that like your health is your wealth and it can be stripped at any moment. And
Yeah.
the things you do or the relationships you are in or how you're showing up all impact your health. And it's not a game to be playing with. It's not something to take lightly. It's not that you can't have fun or you need to be serious all the time, but I've just gotten really clear on that life is urgent and that our health is such a beautiful gift, and the relationships are super important that we create in this world, especially it being digital. That like even I need support and I need accountability. If you think that you can get through life without having a coach or someone like, you know, you were saying, Nate, like a non-binary opinion, like you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's
I before I even discovered coaching, I was always seeking it out. I was like, where is this? And then like I don't know how I didn't know about coaching at that point. But I would say that it's maybe there's a bit of a stigma around it too, because a lot of people are like, well, why do I need a coach like that?
well, it's the same thing with therapy too. When people, I got my year-long TCM, which is like ecology, mindset, beliefs. It's like deep stuff. They're like, oh, so you're like a therapist. I don't need a therapist. And it's like, even if you did need a therapist, that's not a bad thing to need. Like,
Right.
we are not trained as humans to address and embody how we are feeling, let alone to be able to take it for what it is and just work with it.
Yeah.
Um, I have one of my dearest friends who's a coach. She's a therapist and an emotional resilience coach. And she like talks about how we as humans, like we just have this curse because with trauma in our life, we can't like shake it off and shed it. But if you were to watch like a National Geographic and you see an animal that like experiences this traumatic event, they go through this process to like shake it or like get it out of their systems. And we as humans don't do that. We just like live our life taking on the shit of others or allowing corporations to take our lives from us, and we'd have this like bad relationship with time, and we think we never have enough of it, and all of these excuses that we've been conditioned to think we have to live within the parameters of is mindset work. Like it is the mindset. And even just to think of pro athletes and executives or CEOs, like the powerful people or the talented people in the world have coaches. Like we're given coaches when we grow up.
Yeah.
Even like instrumental people, like you, if you want to play piano, like you have a teacher or a coach to teach you how to play piano. It's like we get to this certain age that it's like, oh, you're set up, go crush life. And it's like, I just got my backpack and it's me. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
I'm very passionate about it, as you can tell.
no, I love that. Uh, I want to ask you a few questions about COVID real quick. But there was actually this great book by Eric Schmidt that came out, and I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's something like The Greatest Business Coach Ever. And it's about the coach who came and he coached at both Google and something else. And they call him like the billion or the $1 trillion coach or something like that, because the valuation of Google is like $1 trillion, the valuation of this other company is $1 trillion.
Yeah. I
And
think I
so,
saw this actually. I
yeah,
know what you're talking about. I've not read it though.
it was just so cool that he, like, a lot of people don't know about coaching. And I looked up podcasts on coaching, but not with, not that, not that the podcast is about coaching, but they're actually having a coach on as a guest on like a
Very cool.
podcast. It was really cool. And he talked about his process of like, we don't need a coach. You know, we're Google. We don't need a coach. And clearly the coach doesn't know my job because they're a coach and they're not doing my job. And this person had to explain to him, he's like, well, you're an idiot. They're completely different skills. And he's like, okay, fair enough. And then this guy ended up being just like an incredible asset, huge friends with, or very close friends with Steve Jobs and with Eric and with like everybody in the company, not just the executives. So is really cool to raise awareness about like the benefits of coaching. So with that, I wanted to ask you, so we're in COVID, we're still in quarantine in many ways. We don't exactly know when this is going to end. Can you talk a little bit about the impacts that COVID has had on relationships and connection and how that ends up integrating into your work?
Yeah, I've loved it and I've hated it at the same time, even in my own personal relationship. The thing about COVID or living in a life where you don't necessarily have choice to escape, it it provides us a lot of clarity, thankfully. Like, ouch, like, it's painful, but it's clarity and it's truth. It's the shit that you haven't wanted to address. So relationships, I feel, have either went two ways. One of, oh my gosh, this is not for me. I've been settling. This is unhealthy. I need to get out. Or, and with the flip side of that, you have people that have just gotten out of divorces. Like, I've had a couple clients that are out of divorces and they're both in like the dating world now. And it's been interesting to see how they've had to shift, like they're like forming new boundaries and having like new approaches to relationships. And just like, not only is that hard, but then the additional challenge of not having like the normal healthier things to do because of the isolation. So that's been interesting to see, but also getting clear on even your acquaintances or your family. I've had a lot of conversations where people who they thought that it's like good, it's great relationships, like this is my person. But with friendships, it being kind of confusing because the people you thought would be there for you are not, but then the acquaintances that you have in your life are um, showing up, which has been interesting and nice to see. But not for me particularly, but for definitely for my clients who are going, I mean, obviously my people are going through changes, like they're wanting to re-identify themselves and like create a different experience of life. So with that alone comes needing a friendship group and having support and accountability. But I think also the thing we should all really be mindful of, I just finished reading the book Together. It's The Healing Power of Human Connections in Sometimes a Lonely World.
Huh.
The Vivek Murthy, Obama's Surgeon General, he just wrote it. And it's all about loneliness and how everyone in the world right now is suffering with some sort of loneliness as well as grief, because grief is a change in our behavior or our patterning that we already know. And even just being able to address that within ourselves, I feel people are really struggling with. Like, we as humans aren't given that skill set. So in regards to being able to effectively articulate ourselves or feel more lonely because we are in isolation, it can add a lot of stress, anxiety, loneliness, depression, and it can have a negative impact on our relationships too. I know with my own personal relationship where I'm an introvert, she's an extrovert. And like, it's tough when I'm relied on to be like that stimulation, that communication, that like contact. And I'm like, no. As well as, though, because I am an introvert, I still need people. I just want to like not be having to talk. So for me, not being able to go and like sit at a coffee shop and work, um, it's been challenging. Like, I've felt lonely. I've struggled to feel motivated to like move and exercise, which is not normal for me. So then you have that struggle and that judgment that you have to kind of like really go inward and question why is this happening? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? How are you creating this? What are you doing that's creating this or not creating this, allowing this? So long story short, or long answer, cliff noted, is I believe people are being able to get clarity on what types of relationships are important to them. And if they're not changing them, people are unfortunately struggling and becoming someone they're not because of their quick assets around them. Like, I have a client who is single, he works like a dog, and he hangs out with his neighbors like a couple times a week out in their yards, but they're not really the most positive people, and he often finds himself getting irritated with them. And we had this conversation last week of, he's like, yeah, I just feel like I'm easily triggered, and I like snap easier. I like bring stuff out on them more than what I normally would. And like, I don't like that. And it's like, well, maybe we need to reevaluate if those are the people you should be hanging out with then. Because who you're talking to, who you're hanging out with, you are a makeup of those 5 people. And you have to take ownership in that. And you have to make those 5 people count. You get
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Um, do you find it, how do you handle some of those challenges when your access to other people is restricted?
Well, for me, because all my friends are US, nationwide, and in the UK, I've really had to heavily rely on Zoom.
Yeah.
But something I did, because we have a 6-year-old, I colored pictures. Like, we just needed some sit down time, people. So I went through and I wanted to mail everyone in my family just a picture, right? Just sitting down, coloring with the
Yeah.
kid.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, and it was, and it really lit them up too. So I think also we forget the like little gifts or acts of service that we can do from a space of like generosity and just genuinity that can really make a difference in our connections, as well as just communicating it. Like, it's taken me a lot of work to be able to say, like, I really, really miss you. Can we please create time within the next week to connect? And I would like to see you. Because also, I feel a lot of people assume that other people will just easily ask and request what they want too. That's not true. We don't live in
Oh.
a world where we're empowered to do that, people. So you get to always play leader in asking for what you want. So I
That's,
have,
by the way, a very powerful realization when you're like,
oh,
oh,
it's
I,
painful. It's painful, but powerful. Yeah.
yeah, to realize in a world where we feel oftentimes where we have little choice, especially right now, where we
Uh-huh.
do actually have not as much choice as we want, at least on mobility. Um, to realize that if you want something, you can just ask for it in many situations, not in every, but
Whether
it's
it's, even if it's
almost
like a
any.
raise, even if it's like a raise. I
Yeah.
just recently picked up a job and I just asked and I was shocked. She's like, yeah, we made that work. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Like, I was dumbfounded, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What-
it can be something like that, or it can be simple as like, hey babe, will you rub my back? Like, I'm really tense. Will you please just like rub my shoulders for me?
yeah, it's okay to be selfish.
It's not even being selfish though. It's just taking your care of yourself.
That's very true.
Because
And
I have a problem with selfless syndrome. Like, I'm just give, 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 give. Let me just tether myself away in service.
yeah,
And then there's like nothing left. And it's like, yeah, Alyssa, you gotta reel it in.
yeah. And it's, my mom has this thing where she'll be like, compliment my sister, but then she'll feel she has to compliment me as well. And it's just like,
Cute.
yeah. And by the way, I'm also from the Midwest. I'm from Nebraska,
Okay.
so it's she's awesome. She's very sweet. But my point behind that is like sometimes you can just ask for something, and you don't
Mhm.
have to feel like you have to give something in return every time. You can just be like, hey, I need this, do you mind? Or hey, would you be open-minded to this? And
Well, and that is where your, I mean, I'm going to say spirituality because it is, but just also your mindset.
yeah.
You have to believe and be in alignment that life is always happening for you, not to you. And so if you're always coming from a space of like, oh, this is happening for me, this is happening for me, you don't have that like question of, oh shit, like if I ask, like, then what can I do to like make it up to Nate? What do I have to do? It's like, no, you just go with it because you know that it's going to come back and like you're going to get to show up within like it's just like part of who you are, and you don't have that subconscious monkey mind that's like inhibiting you from like honoring yourself.
Yeah, exactly. The your point about thinking that things are happening to you, that the universe is happening to you. Like, I found that even if you don't literally believe it, if you just tell yourself it and
Say it.
yeah, and are just like accepting of a little bit of delusion in your life, that can go a long way. You're just like, this is what I'm going to choose to say to myself, because the other way is just not useful at all in my life. It's
Mm-mm.
just making me stressed out, making me feel guilty about asking for what I want. I had a, so I'm writing, so we co-authored a book and I'm writing my own book. And one of my favorite authors is a New York Times best-selling writer. And I found his email. I was like, well, I don't think he's going to want to, I don't know if he's going to want to talk to me, but I was just like, I'll just email him.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, set up an appointment, gave me his phone number. And then we've been like talking ever since. So it's just like a lot of these things that we think are high risk are actually no risk at all, or very, very low risk and very, very high reward. And I think one of those things is, to your point, saying the universe is happening to me. You are risking nothing by just saying that. And there's so much upside.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about also in the lines of COVID and the time that we're in right now, being able to stay authentic through work life, um, kind of within the parameters of how we're living right now?
Yeah, I think that one of the beautiful things about having to be remote, I think it was a struggle in the beginning of people in the world of corporate and Zoom don't ever want to have their cameras on. But once we got past that and it like started to be more mandatory in organizations, I feel like being able to see you in your space, in your like natural setting, maybe a kid coming by or a dog popping in, like where people are self-conscious about that, I feel it's little stuff like that that reminds us that, you know what, we're human, we all have our own stuff going on, and this is who I am, and this is where I live. So I like that component. And so if whoever's listening has a problem with that, embrace that, like own that. It's a beautiful gift that you're given that you get to share with the people you hop on line with. Um, the second thing that I feel people could be addressing more is understanding the impact of what working at home has had on them with their partners, with their children, and with their organizations.
Mm.
It's not easy, people. I usually need 9 hours of sleep. And even so, I need more sleep. We're talking like 10 or 11 hours. And that's frustrating for me. It's irritating. And I don't like that I wake up and I don't really feel rested more days than not. And so I get to be really clear with that. I get to be forgiving of myself and understanding and patient with myself. But I also need to communicate that to my partner and her son and other people that I'm working with. Because if I'm not getting my sleep or I'm just not feeling rested, whether I like it or not, I'm not going to be working as effectively. I'm not going to feel as connected or as present online with you as you likely deserve, or I feel you deserve. My intimacy or connection may be a little less existent, or I may be easily irritated. Um, I may want to be making poor health choices. And we can't create change, and we can't remain connected and authentic with ourselves and others if we don't communicate that kind of stuff. And if we're not willing to slow down and look at it and address it and not make meaning of it, but just acknowledge it. And I think that's something that even managers incorporate with the work-life integration. If you are a parent or if you are a single person, right? The parents that are like e-learning, it's a shit show. We all get it. Like, and if you don't have kids, you should get it because it's brutal.
Yeah.
But then also understanding and empathizing with those single people that are working at home and don't have someone to talk to or lay with or cuddle with or eat with. Like, that's a very lonely space. And I feel that we get to be more understanding and remember that, like, we're all human. Like, humans are human. And being able to be your authentic self and let people in on what it is you're experiencing so that we can have that connection while still in a digital world. And this is to say at work too. It's a whole nother conversation of like being sympathetic versus empathetic as a leader and as a person. The ability to just agree with someone and validate that what they're feeling is normal and okay is something
Yeah.
we don't do enough.
Yeah. And oftentimes we don't do it because we don't take the first step to do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't like to admit our own faults, or we get upset with ourselves for who we kind of naturally are.
Mm-hmm.
Like I take like a couple naps during the day, and then I have friends
Oh,
who like
why
can't get to
not?
sleep. Yeah. I have friends who like can't get to sleep, and they're like, I envy you so much. I'm like, yeah, I wish I didn't feel I had to sleep. Like I, in my body, feel like I have to sleep. But now they know that about me. So they know that I like have frustrations about myself, and that, that almost gives them the lead, or that almost gives them the opportunity to then admit their own
Mm-hmm.
shortcomings or their own frustrations, even if it's directed towards me, which I want to know as well. I'd rather know that than have some sort of underlying, like, festering irritation.
Yeah, Nate, like I really love spending time with you, but when you're taking naps, it actually makes you quite unavailable, and like that pisses me off.
Okay, now that hurts. No,
It
I'm
makes
just
me feel
kidding.
unsupported or that you're not available. But it's like even a conversation like that, it's like, okay, well, this is why I take naps, or this is why I do X. And again, it's that ability, and that this is one of the game changers about the relationships 2.0 and my methodology. It's about being able to take that on and not take it personally, but to just see that, like, oh, this person has feelings about this, and like it's not, and it's usually they're coming from like scarcity, fear, loss, and it's like, oh, okay, well, this is why I do what I do. I'm not meaning for it. Like, how or what can we create so that you don't feel this, but
Mm,
I'm still able to honor myself? And
yeah.
it's just something simple like that, but
I know.
practice.
Oh, it takes it takes practice for me too, even though this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It also takes practice to know that you don't have to blow up on that person and use it as a reason to unload all the baggage you have upon them. Like it's
Yeah.
really, really healthy to be able to just like take feedback and not see it as a reason for you to, yeah, unload everything you've wanted to say. And it's
Yeah.
also
No,
a reason.
feedback is a gift.
It really, really is. It really, really is. It's good to, I'd rather know what I'm doing wrong or,
How you're impacting someone. It's not even that you're doing it wrong, Nate.
yes,
It's
that's very
just
true.
how you're impacting. And that's the beautiful thing about being humans is we all have our different experiences. It's one of the like impact versus intent, depending on whether you're masculine or feminine and how you speak versus how you listen. Like there's so much that goes into being able to communicate and resolve conflict while still while still feeling loved, safe, respected, and understood. And it is not something that we've been taught, and it's not something that we see on TV. It's not something that we read. Like it is a practice, but
Yeah.
you can't practice if you're not willing to have the awareness and apply the awareness on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. Um, and something that, as adults, oftentimes we aren't monitored like we are as kids. Like we have our parents there to help us emotionally adjust, hopefully, or, you know, give us feedback. As an adult, you don't get that as much either because, you might be an entrepreneur or like a solo business owner or you just, people around you aren't willing to tell you what they feel.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
almost like
and
a
they don't,
relearning
sometimes they don't know.
or they
Like
don't know.
I'm telling you, Nate, when I ask people, when we're talking about foods, and I just want to know like what foods give you energy versus what foods take away. Like, and just because I don't want you to have to diet or restrict, like, what are those foods? And people are like, yeah, I don't know that. And then it's like, okay, well, and I usually want to do a one word check in with how you feel before and after the sessions. And
Mm.
I have to pull up an emotions wheel because
Wow.
we just aren't, it's interesting that people don't know how they feel, which again, I went 25 years with masking how I felt or just sweeping shit under the rug and or just running from it, so I can like completely empathize with that and I
Yeah.
understand it. But I mean, even just expecting people to like truly know how they feel and then let alone understand how it's impacting them consciously, subconsciously, or like show where it's showing up. Um, it's a lot.
It is.
Mm.
But this is the kind of work the kind of thing that that I think makes your work so valuable. And it's the kind of work that people need. And especially now when they're almost forced to be with themselves. Because a lot of people their version of sweeping under the rug is helping other people as much as possible so they don't have to help themselves.
Or going out for happy hours or going on trips. Like, nope.
Even going to the gym, something healthy,
As
can
an
be
outlet.
a
Yeah.
reason for you to forget to check in with yourself
Mm-hmm.
or reading a book or whatever. Um, that's beautiful. Is there anything else that I haven't covered or asked you that you would like to touch upon? Or have we kind of, I
I don't think so.
think we've covered a lot. And
I mean, it's been 47 minutes.
I know. That's
It
incredible.
doesn't feel like it, but it
No.
has. No, yeah, I think just if there's one takeaway that people get from today is just really understanding the importance of that. Like, you're a human, right? Like, life is difficult, and it's even more difficult when we're not taking care of ourselves. And whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, um, it all plays factor. I love the realization of you can tell a lot by a person and you can know what they are experiencing from a mentally and emotionally standpoint solely by looking at their physical space.
Mm.
Because if a person has clutter, and it can go the other way too, If a person's super OCD and super organized in particular, there's probably likely some control and some escape. Like, I'm just going to focus on making sure that everything's like perfect and where I need it to be. Or if it's really cluttered and messy, it it's overwhelming. That person likely needs to have a conversation too. And I'm just saying that merely not for you or anyone to like judge themselves, but to be aware of that as an opportunity to connect with someone. And instead of asking like, how are you, or how was your weekend, instead ask, how are you feeling today? What was your best part of the weekend?
Ooh, I like that.
Ask questions that can't be answered with good,
Yeah.
okay, fine. Force people to become more emotionally literate and work on your own. And if you need help with that, contact Nate or I. We're here. That's what we love to do.
Yeah.
When you can't believe in yourself, allow a coach to believe in you, because that's powerful. I need it. Nate needs it.
Yes,
You can need it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Going off of that, what is the best way people can learn about you and contact you? And I'll obviously include this in the notes as well.
Yeah, my website, you can go there, alyssapoggioli.com. If you want to know more, like from a professional basis and reading, LinkedIn or Medium, all my profiles are my names. If you want to get to know me from a more personal level, Instagram and Facebook. But I do have a private Facebook group as well, as like how to be empathetic and analytical, that you can join and get free coaching on a weekly basis there as well.
Very cool.
So, but my website like has it all.
Okay, excellent. Well, this has been such a awesome conversation sitting down with you. Thanks so much for, yeah, showing up and being vulnerable and also being educational at the same time. So this has been fantastic. I'm really glad we got to do this.
Thank you. And I can't wait until our book comes out.
I know. Hopefully within a few weeks, couple
Mm-hmm.
weeks at least, at the minimum. So I'm very
Yeah,
excited.
good stuff.
Yeah. All right, Alyssa. Take care.
Bye.